welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Marline C. Duroseau. Dr. Marline is a TEDx speaker, scholar, and executive, and a fertility advocate and coach. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Marline C. Duroseau.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Courtney Beck, for having me. It's truly, truly an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Dr. Marline, it is truly an honor to have you on the podcast. I have to let our listeners know when I was preparing for this podcast and this conversation we are about to have, your background is so incredibly inspiring for both females and males, okay? Because from literally being a top executive to going back to school, we're going to talk about everything. And what I love the most is that along your journey, you decided to help so many people along the way, specifically with your foundation. And that foundation is Angel's Grace Foundation. And so that is so admirable. I cannot wait to jump into this podcast, Dr. Marline. So let's start right away. If you can begin
Absolutely.
with an introduction and a background of yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Courtney, for having me on. It's truly an honor to be here today. And a little bit about myself. I am the first generation Haitian American, first generation American. I'm a child of Haitian immigrants. And I always start off with that because that's such a foundational aspect of me because I'm just an avid learner, overachiever. And when you're an immigrant, the only thing that talks in that household is education. Okay. So we need to figure out how to learn more because learning and whatever you learn, your education is something that we were taught never, can be taken away from you. Right. So I am a first generation American. I have a lot of siblings. There's 8 of us in total. So I come from a big family. I also am a chief financial officer. I also work in HR and leadership development with Brandon Hall. And, I earned my doctorate in organizational leadership because learning was just, okay, what's next, right? I also, like you mentioned, was an executive. 23 years I worked for a company, and I moved up from being the payroll person as a senior in college up to CFO, Chief Financial Officer. And the reason why I always like to lead with that is because leadership is everything. And as a result of mentorship myself, I had great mentors. It's always been important to me to give back, right? In the form of mentorship and in the form of being the type of leader that a team would want to work with. And I don't say for because when you're a leader, you're in the trenches with your team, right? There is no you above them. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm also a mom of 4. I have 4 boys, all boys, a boy mom. And I'm also married, been married for 23 years. So yeah, a lot going on in my life, but that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And there is so much to like pick apart with that.
Yeah.
And I love how you just lay such a solid foundation down where your upbringing really had so much influence on you. As you mentioned, education and how important education is. I feel like even today, with all of the technology coming at us full force, how important it is to continually learn different subjects, different disciplines, and never stop learning. So I love how you mentioned that.
Thank
But
you.
Dr. Marline, big congratulations on your recent TEDx talk. I cannot wait to jump into this. I mean, this is huge. I mean, as we know, to make it to the TEDx stage, that is phenomenal. It is the top of the top in public speaking, especially within a certain, area of expertise. So, Dr.
Right.
Marline, if you could just walk us through this journey of how you got up to that TEDx stage.
What a fabulous question. Okay, because the only thing a lot of the times that we see is the actual TEDx talk when it's published, right? So it's always amazing to dissect that and work backwards. So I have to tell you, Courtney, that it took almost 2 years, right, of putting in applications, going in to figure out what exactly am I going to talk about. getting over my own fear, because although it was a dream of mine once I hit the speaker circuit, right, to land a TEDx, you can have these goals and aspirations, but then you kind of like, oh my gosh, will it ever actually happen? And what am I going to talk about? Will people care? So it was definitely a trek, definitely a trek of time, and it took a couple, almost 2 years really to get those applications in. I worked with a speaker coach to really hone in on my message. Also, before even honing in on the message, I had to try to figure out what I wanted to talk about, what was new, what was relevant, what is something that will, even when I'm far gone, that message will definitely hit home and be of inspiration to someone else. So that TEDx journey was definitely a long and laboring one.
No, thank you for sharing that because, like, to your point, I really do. I love to always hear the journey leading up to it. And to a lot of people, public speaking can be very intimidating without a
Yeah.
doubt. And so it's something like, honestly, even with the podcast here, I've been doing it since last year, but it really is like each and every time you get on, you're building more confidence. But I could tell you what, Dr. Marlene, that first time I got on, oh, talk about a starting point. But
Yeah.
it really is. That's so admirable just to discuss your journey. And your topic here is the secret battle behind powerful women leaders. So could you please expand upon this particular topic that really is so close to your heart?
Absolutely. That topic, I finally settled on it, Courtney, when I successfully defended my doctoral dissertation. I really wanted to talk about a topic that so many women are dealing with day in and day out, and no one really gives light to. It's almost like a unspoken truth that walks into every room with us. And when you are a high achieving woman, okay, in an executive or leadership role, it's just expected that you're going to show up. And not only is it expected that you'll show up, it's expected that you'll show up immaculately, no mistakes, perfect, and just have all the answers, right? Even though you're walking into maybe uncharted territory or things of that nature, people just expect you to have it together. And it's something that we need to learn to use as a superpower versus trying to hide from it. And oftentimes you find that a lot of women leaders are fighting a silent battle. In my case, the silent battle was infertility. Maybe for another powerful leader, it is grief. Maybe it is trauma. You just don't know. So I really wanted to talk about the disruption that women leaders face and how instead of looking at it as something that keeps them back from promotions, keeps them from getting paid the money they deserve, keep them from advocating for themselves, because sometimes internally we feel, well, I don't think they'll choose me, or I don't think they'll let me do it. And we just need to reframe that mindset and use all of these disruptions as, you know what, in spite of all of this, look at what I can still accomplish. In spite of all of this, look at what I have accomplished, and be able to get the support you need to deal with the disruption. Because oftentimes in life, whatever's going on, it's not going away, right? So, but you need support to deal with it and perform and execute, immaculately like they want us to do. So that's why I chose that topic and what it really is about.
Such a beautiful topic, and it's a topic that is certainly needed to be brought forth to be discussed more
Yes.
openly because, I look at this and your TEDx talk has been extremely successful. And I want to discuss right now, since you've had that TEDx talk, which was not,
Yes.
it was very recent, but
Yes.
what has been your feedback after presenting it from even females and males?
That's a great question, because one of the things that I was afraid of, even though you're a speaker, there's nothing like that TEDx stage, right? When you stand on that red dot, and you want to make sure that you're delivering it with the amount of passion and impact that you really want and set out for it to make. So in doing so, I was nervous, obviously, right? Giving it, and all the nerves went away almost immediately after I started speaking, one. And two, I got off of the stage, Courtney, and there were women and men lined up in the TEDx room to speak with me. Like they were in line and they waited a while because everyone had things to say. And of the multiple feedback that I received, one of the ones that really stands out to me is a young lady. She came up and she goes, you know, you really were speaking to me. She said, I love how you framed it eventually in your talk as disruption, because I personally didn't have a infertility situation. My situation was grief, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I lost my father, but I'm an executive and I'm just expected to still show up to work after this only 3 days bereavement. And I didn't know if I was coming, going. It was tough. And she said to me, and speaking with my therapist mentioned that sometimes you just have to step away and, you know, do a big pause, just pause. And she said, seeing you on stage today and how you literally did that, when I speak with my therapist again, she said, I'm going to tell her it clicked. It clicked. I watched this TEDx lady get up here, describe her situation, and part of the situation in terms of a way to deal, a way to cope, a way to get through it is by taking a step back and pausing. And she showed me what that meant. So that meant a lot to me because, again, infertility is something that, you know, is just very stigmatized and taboo. But to see how even beyond infertility, just it really brought home my point that women executives, women leaders are dealing with a lot. And sometimes you don't even think that you deserve the time to pause. So I was happy I was able to actually do that, right? Exemplify that on stage in my talk so that it was a practical exercise that she was able to do. So that was great for me.
This is absolutely wonderful because I really do. I think that there is something so powerful about storytelling, telling our story. And in this specific case, a specific topic that was near and dear to your heart, but how it could impact so many other people to where they feel more open to share their own story that, hey, wow, I'm not the only one struggling with this. And I think that's so important. And so, you know, we were talking even before this podcast and before we started, but you just have such a passion for leadership. And this was, as you had mentioned, it was part of the TEDx talk as well, just discussing leadership. And so I'm curious, just leaders today, do you have maybe, you know, one piece of advice that you could provide them when it comes to leadership?
Um, there's a lot of advice when it comes to leadership. But I think that something that resonates and always circles back is I came up with a acronym that I use in my leadership talks now, and it's called, you know, having ear qualities. Yes, ear, your ear, EAR, right? Ear qualities. And as a leader, and there are two things. One of them are ear qualities, which is the E is to have that emotional intelligence, right? Recognizing and being aware of where you are and what you're dealing with instead of trying to push it under the rug. When you have that emotional intelligence, you're able to tap into, okay, now how do I respond to what it is? But you have to know where you are, right? So that's the E. Then you have A, which I coin A with two things, which is authenticity and adaptability, right? Because showing up authentically yourself, and a lot of times people use that word authentic to mean, you know, you're just going to show up, let's just for the sake of our conversation, goofy or stern or smart. No, whatever you're feeling, right? Once you have that emotional intelligence, whatever you're feeling, it's okay to be authentically in those feelings. Show up like that, right? And the other A is for adaptability. You have to be able to adapt because even though you're in your element, you're being authentic, you're now in a different space where you have to adapt to what's going on in order for you to get through, right? So E is for emotional intelligence, A, authenticity and being able to adapt, and then finally, R is the resilience, because once you're able to recognize where you are, be authentic and adapt accordingly based on your surrounding, that's what's building your resilience. That's how you're able to keep going, you know? So I really think that those three, amongst so many others that we can get into, you know, another day, but having those qualities and being able to master those are everything. And the other thing that I like to share with regards to leadership, but not necessarily strictly leadership, just as a person, And I coin it back to what I call my MCD principles, which are my initials, MCD. And that's just to be motivated, because whatever you're doing in life, you want to stay motivated. Because if not, if you don't know your why, you don't, tap into your why when you want to give up, right? It really takes you 3 steps backwards. So you want to stay motivated. You want to be courageous, right? Because when you're courageous, oftentimes, see, courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. You act in spite of being afraid. It doesn't matter, just do it, right? And finally, D is to be dynamic, and it goes kind of in line with the authenticity, So if you're normally a bubbly person saying hi, etc., it's okay. Be dynamic. Do what you do well. So those are my 2 tips that I like to give in terms of leadership and just self-development as well.
I love everything about this. Oh my gosh, I have to like break this up a little bit. So, going back to emotional intelligence, this is a huge topic of discussion right now, especially with AI coming full force and holding on to that sense of connection, that human connection, but understanding one's emotions, being able to connect with another human being. And so I love that you say that. And I think resilience today is such an important topic because I find myself everything like instant gratification, right? Like you just want instant success and stuff. But the true like meaning of life and that we see in life is, of course, that's not always true. Like it's going to
Yeah,
take sometimes years, and having that
absolutely.
perseverance and resilience. And then I love that you talk about motivation and one's purpose. This
Yes,
is a topic of discussion that I'm so passionate about because you're right. It's what wakes you up in the morning. It's what gets you
absolutely.
excited to like start your morning off. Oh my gosh, Dr. Marley, I am so excited. And speaking of leadership, as you had mentioned, you recently completed your doctorate. Huge congratulations. This year has been phenomenal for you. So I would love for you to discuss why you went back to school and what that whole journey was like.
You know what? This year for me was my year of completion, which for me, I set out in 2025 that everything that I started, it needs to be complete this year. Okay. So it just so happened that God and the universe have it aligned for me as well. But I'm very, very proud of myself for that. And I went back to school 2 reasons. One, I just am always eager to learn, have always been eager to learn. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true, right? And that's from my childhood. Just okay, whatever you know makes you better. It's more information that you're tucking away in your back pocket. And the other reason I went back is because I just always wanted to complete my doctorate. I really wanted to dig deep into a topic that was very passionate and personal to me, that will allow my name to live on in my research far beyond my years here. Because and I said to myself, I want to either be done by the time I'm 40 or start by the time I'm 40. Lo and behold, I started the year that I was turning 40. So I was able to accomplish that and do it. And I chose organizational leadership because I sat back and thought about leadership and said, we're constantly studying leadership. There's so much research out there on leadership. Why the need to constantly study leadership? And then, Courtney, I thought and thought and thought, and all of a sudden it hit me. I said, because leadership is always evolving. And you have some people where you hear the old adage, they were born a leader, right? You hear the also an old adage of some people were made leaders. And when you try to intersect the two, it reminded me of my come up, in the business world and other people that I've seen where it can go one of 2 ways. You have someone who's a fantastic employee. They meet their deadlines, they do their work, they're there on time, they're passionate, they give 100%, but they're like an employee. Once they get promoted because of all this excellence that they're exhibiting, they become promoted. And then you find that they fail because they weren't either inherently a leader, right? Let's say they weren't inherently a leader, so they weren't quote unquote born a leader, but they didn't receive the training, the support, the mentorship, the coaching they needed to hone in on those leadership skills. And I've seen time and time again, and this can be any industry, any company. Some companies fail the person because they don't have the proper training. You can be a great worker, but don't have what you need yet to be a leader. It's not that you're not capable, but someone has to be willing to teach you. And that's when I said to myself, that's why there will always be leadership development. And even that speaks to the person that promoted you. What type of leader are they that they didn't prepare you, right, for this new leadership position? So it's just very nuanced, and it's something that will continually grow. So I think it's very important to talk about leadership, and we develop different leadership styles, different leadership theories. Some people do have, like that person who, let's say, wasn't trained to be a leader, right? I'm sorry, or born to be a leader, so to speak. They have leadership qualities, which is what? Dependability, right? They have a mode of excellence. They already have some skills and qualities that they have, but how do you help nurture them to the next level? So that's why I chose organizational leadership, because the way that things are led at the top will make and break your employees, which will then make and break the company. So
That is so true. And I love how you mentioned that because, as you were speaking, it reminded me too of even sport, how sometimes you could be a phenomenal athlete, but to
correct.
be a coach
Coach.
is a
Yes.
totally, like, people will think that it's a smooth transition that you
No.
just go straight into becoming a coach, and it's
Right.
really not.
Right.
And, being in corporate for just a short stint in sales, it's so interesting because you would see other titles being created, like such as more senior sales representative, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of individuals may have chose, hey, maybe being a manager is not for me, whereas others are like, let me climb the ladder as quick as I can. So
Exactly.
I do.
Exactly.
I'm just happy that you highlight that. And along your journey of education, of your incredible corporate career as an executive, you also give back to people
Yeah.
so much. And I had mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, but specifically, it's Angels Grace Foundation. And I was hoping that you could maybe just elaborate on why you started this foundation and what it means to you.
Yeah, I started Angel's Grace because, and it took a while. A little backstory on that is during my husband's 15-year infertility journey, a little bit of a trigger warning here. 10 years in, we finally, agreed to move on to the next step of trying IVF. So we went and did our first IVF. As nervous and hectic as that was, we were one of the lucky ones in that we found success in our first round. And unfortunately, that success was not long lived. We ended up, losing our daughter. I was 22 weeks and 1 day pregnant, and I had to deliver her. The full delivery, full shebang, contractions, push the baby, all of it. And I ended up, just very, very sad, and going home. Instead of with the child, we went home with a purple box with all artifacts and things like that. So fast forward a little bit, every year I do something to commemorate, her memory and things of that nature. And it's been sitting on my heart to, do something to honor her. So last year in 2024, we celebrate National Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. It was coined by uh, uh, former President Reagan when he and Nancy had lost their daughter, and it's a national month and day of recognition. So I hosted my first "You Are My Angel" remembrance event last year, and it was a success because there's so many people dealing with grief and loss, and they just want a safe space to gather and also to learn, educate them on how to support others. If you have people in your life that are working towards getting pregnant, how do you support them so that they're educated on questions to ask and things of that nature. So I promised myself, I said, okay, since I mustered up the courage, right, to go ahead and have this event, I said for year two, I want to form the nonprofit in her name. And I was very, very happy and also lucky to get that done. And we officially gained our 501c3 designation as well with the IRS. And the second annual event just was 2 months ago, October 18. It was a success. I had tremendous, keynote speakers. We had a great turnout. There were like 60, 70 people in the room, and it was phenomenal. And the foundation I created to just provide a little grace to all of us angels here on earth. All of us here are angels on earth and could benefit from some grace, whether it's support through loss, support in a time of transition in your life, or just support to let people know that, they're not alone in whatever time of need that they're dealing with. So I have great, great, great aspirations for the foundation. And, as we grow out, I just look forward to helping so many other people.
That's absolutely beautiful. And, I'm so happy that you're discussing topics, like you said, whether it's grief, loss, infertility, but that you're bringing it to the forefront. And I'm sure there's so many people that are able to speak with you and to share just by you sharing your story. I want to congratulate you on your nonprofit status and how you're just evolving with this foundation now, and it's continuing to grow. I think that's beautiful. So I wish you
Thank
all the
you.
best with that.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And moving forward, my gosh, like I said, you have done everything, Dr. Marline. I'm just so incredibly, like, I'm proud of you. I feel like that we just met, but I'm so
I
proud
know.
of you. My gosh.
Thank you.
So here we are. You are an author now. It'll
Yes.
happen by 30 is the title of the book. And I just want to open the floor to allow you to speak about what inspired you to write this book at this point of your life.
Fantastic question. You have some great questions, Courtney.
Thank you.
I didn't set out to write the book, but this was like a perfect segue because after having lost Angel, I didn't know if I was coming, I didn't know if I was going, I didn't know if I was going up, down, left, right. So writing has always been an outlet for me. I was that young girl that kept diaries, like I had journals. And so I said, I want to be able to just write to get my feelings out. And although I had, my OB who delivered me set me up with my therapist, and I love her so much. I'm still with her today, all these years later. But you sometimes need more. You want to get that emotion out, and I have to tell you, I started writing after that, like officially, just to help get through that grief. And then when it was time to maybe do another IVF cycle, I wrote about what I was thinking about on if I should try again and all the things. And by the time my journey was done, because I ended up delivering twin boys, Kason and Camden. And then after that, I delivered my final kid. And when I put everything together, because I kept the same log going, it was about 30,000 words. It was a lot. And I said, I couldn't have gone through all of this just to just have it here. I want to be able to create a body of work that will help other people. And that's what I did. I went ahead and got the book published. And I said, if I don't do anything else, I want to be able to share my story. And it's just been amazing from there. And that's what kind of propelled me to maybe consider my entrepreneurial journey as well and say, maybe I can transition out of corporate. I'm not sure. Because after I wrote the book, and some members of my family didn't know what we had gone through until the book was released, right? So it was a lot. It was a big revelation. And after doing that, I said, okay, what's next? So I decided to say, okay, let me speak on stages, let me talk about this stuff. And that's kind of sort of how everything, progressed. But I wrote the book in an effort to help support people who are on their journey. And also, even if someone hasn't been through it, reading the book allows you to know how to help someone else, right? That you may encounter that's going through it. And what's also great about the book is I didn't have any resources when I was in the hospital dealing with this. So I've made a couple, medical and clinical type connections where the book can serve as a resource from that standpoint to help moms who are just going home without their kid. Like, so it's amazing. And if not for anything else, if all else fails, it's just a book about what happens when life doesn't go according to plan. Are you willing to adapt? Are you willing to stick the course? Are you willing to give up? Like what happens? And just a beautiful story of how we navigate that.
That's so true. And like, I mean, just that word adaptability. And, you were speaking about how your family didn't even know that you were going through this. And I think, that is something I really just wanted to take some time to kind of emphasize of how we never know what people are going through in their lives. And in this case, obviously you published a book and they would then later know. But
Right.
I think that's just like a really good reminder today that, we're always in a rush and we're putting so many things on our, things to do and everything day to day. But then just to like slow down and to take time to reach out to people maybe you haven't, spoken to in a while and stuff, because how
Yeah.
important that is. You just never know if somebody's going through something and how like just even a small letter or a phone call, a text could really
Exactly.
make such a difference. And so I'm so happy for you though. Like, I mean, just to everything that you have gone through, you persevered, how you have adapted, but you have reached back to help so many women. And I think that's so important in life. And so I admire you for that.
Thank
And
you.
absolutely. And we've spoke so much. I love this. We've done academia, we've done life, we've done a little bit of career, but I really did like I wanted to dive right into
You
career.
do.
You are an executive. You mentioned it before for 23 years, specifically within healthcare. So
Yes.
what made you go into healthcare and what is maybe because our audience is pretty broad, pretty general, but what are some things maybe in healthcare that you have seen change throughout the years that you've been within healthcare?
What made me go into healthcare, I think it kind of happened just by chance because the company I ended up working for, they specialized in nursing homes. The industry was nursing homes. So I dealt with the elderly. And it's not that I necessarily sought out to work in that particular industry. It just so happened to, be the industry for the type of role I was looking for and things of that nature. But I have to tell you, it really opened my eyes to a different, way of thinking about healthcare. I come from a long line of caretakers, nurses, my sister, my nieces, they're all into actual, direct patient care and things of that nature. So I know how important having great doctors and nurses are. And even though my industry is, with the elderly, I just think that you see life through a different lens when you're dealing with having to understand and deal with people who are sick or people who are just not able. And part of my journey in trying to start my family involved a lot of me being hospitalized, right? So it just takes a special person to care for someone when they're at their most vulnerable. And I'm an empath. I take on everybody's problems like my own, even if I personally don't want to. My body, my emotions, it takes everything on. So I already empathized with whoever I see that's either not feeling well or sick or what have you. But when I became the patient, oh my God, it's like I didn't even want the people to help me. I don't want to bother them. You guys work so hard, all the things. But when it comes to healthcare, I think unless, and you never really want people to learn it this way, but until you've been on the other side of the receiving side of someone being, very caring and compassionate and, nice to you, you just really don't understand. So it's very, very, very important to take care of our healthcare workers. And in the healthcare industry, some of the women who were my participants in the study, they also worked in healthcare. So imagine they're tasked with taking care of people, whether they worked in pediatrics, in nursing home industry, med surge, big hospitals, and they were dealing with their own issues, right? They were dealing with their own infertility, and some even, trigger warning had, losses while on the job. So it just, you get to see a different side of everything once you've been ingrained in it. And I just think that companies, organizations, they should continue to do what they can to support their frontline workers and people like us who are on the other side, meaning not hospitalized or not going through something. We just need to have that empathy and compassion towards our healthcare workers and the people that are in healthcare, you know, try to push it through because the ones that really care, you don't want them to lose that love for it because of bureaucracy or because of, issues with family members and things of that nature. So I probably know I went off on a tangent, but I can attack healthcare from everywhere. And I just feel really good after all these years in the industry that I was able to make a difference. Because when COVID hit, oh, Courtney, like, and I know so many of you and the viewers have watched the impact of COVID worldwide, but also in my case, when it came to healthcare. And it was just so disheartening. And trying to lead a team in the midst of all that change, it was a lot, so Mhm.
No, I can't even imagine. And, I certainly give you credit during that time
Thank
because
you.
it was, I mean, talk about, I'm sure, adaptability. I mean, you're just on the fly
Yes.
trying to
Yes.
understand how to literally keep going and to keep
Correct.
functioning, effectively. I love how you mentioned just that word empathy and
Mhm.
how important, I don't know, that word just keeps coming up just even in life. I've heard it so much. And I think within leadership, to take time to appreciate employees, appreciate workers and what they do. I mean, even from my standpoint, if I'm walking into an office and stuff, to be able just to say thank you sometimes or deliver, like I love giving out, like, not all the time, but like when it's, deserved, but like something as simple as like a compliment, how
Yeah.
that could really make somebody's day. And I'm sure within, healthcare, it's more of complaints than it is, wow, thank you so much, So I think that's so important that we extend that kindness and that empathy because it could change somebody's day and you never even know what they're going through behind the scenes, as we have already mentioned. So I think
Exactly.
that's beautiful.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And without a doubt. And I love talking about literally life, sport, and career, the three components of this podcast. And so I would love for you to discuss I do think it's a topic that's certainly becoming something that's more spoken about, but just what I call like the work life harmony, Dr. Marlene. I don't know if there's work life balance out there, but how you did it. Because if I'm doing the timeline correctly, and you're still an executive. You also got your PhD during this time, and you're a mother of four. So, could you explain literally how do you do it? How do you do it all?
Literally, this is going to sound cliche, but Courtney, literally one day at a time. I can show you my phone, my calendar. I live by this thing. Okay, so first of all, you have to plan everything because a woman without a plan is going nowhere. Okay,
I love it.
so I don't know if you can see, but my look at this. My calendar is jam packed. Okay, so I stress time blocking, time management. But in addition to that, you have to be able to pivot and adapt when everything on that calendar doesn't happen the way that you intended it for it to happen. And it can really throw you for a loop. So, one of the things that I know really worked for me after, because going back to school just really threw a monkey wrench in my schedule, the kids' schedule, my husband's schedule, like everyone. So, it took, believe it or not, a couple years in school to really kind of, figure out what works best, right? How do we get that harmony? And I found for me that even if everything is scheduled, it's okay to have things that are priority. And I personally had to understand if something doesn't get done, it's okay. Move it to the next day. Like, and allow the people around you to help you because something that would happen would be something like, okay, this was on my schedule, but something came up with school or something came up with work or something came up with my parents, whatever it is. And then, but I also had to do this. And then it's like, well, what do I do? And they're okay, well, your husband can do it. Well, he won't do it right. Or ask your children. Oh no, well, they never did it before. So we psych ourselves out of help because we think if we're not the ones doing it, it won't get done. Now, does that mean whoever you get help from is going to do it your way? And my husband told me a long time, Marlene, not everyone is like you. Like there's no one. So you like just tell me what you need, and then we'll get. And then us women, we get frustrated because we're like, well, why do I have to tell you what I need? Like, can't you see? Like, you don't do. So Courtney, I had to work. I
It's
had
so
to. I had to work on me. It was a me thing because we'll let it fester thinking it's everyone else, but you can only control you. So once I let go of the perfection, I let go of it having to be done this way by this time. The ultimate goal is that it's done. So I had to work on that. And another reason why I did that is because if something couldn't get done, I did the more important things. So that's just going to have to wait. And now, oh, honey, I sleep well at night. If something on the list wasn't done, I move it over to the next day. And even then, if I move it, if it's not going to be able to get done, it's okay. Like, in just full transparency, we had to reschedule because last minute I get a phone call about something that I needed to take care of, for my mother-in-law. And what am I going to do? Stress out, worried about if I'm hurting Courtney and worried about the work and this and that. And yesterday was just a nightmare, right? But guess what? All the important stuff got done. right? And I'm calm. I feel good. I went to bed on time. I woke up great. It is what it is. So I don't mean to minimize it because it's a lot of work and a lot of planning, right? But we have to let go of this sense of perfection in the sense that we won't accept the help because we think our help can't do it like us. Why does it matter? Right? So learn to accept the help, let go of things being perfect. And who says it's not perfect? Again, I only say perfect because it's according to us, the way we want it, but that's not necessarily the end all, right? And just having a schedule, because if you don't have a plan, then you're just in chaos and you just kind of maneuver each day as things go. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Marlene, I am definitely going to take you up on that because when it comes to perfectionism, it is something that I have certainly struggled with. Kind of to
Yes.
your point, not being able to allocate, different things here and there. Like you said, I mean, is it going to get done the way that I envision it, and
Correct.
whatnot? And so, I guess just like a quick follow up question to that is, during that process of you having grace with yourself, of being able to say,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, it did not get finished today, it will get finished tomorrow. How did you go through that journey to then come to acceptance of that?
It took a while, and eventually what I ended up having to do is hire myself a coach. So I have my therapist, right? And then I said I need, because even when I knew, because we're logical people, we're smart. Okay, I know what needs to happen. Like I know it's not a big deal. I know I need to let it go, but I just couldn't. So then at that point I said, okay, I have to try to get down to the nitty-gritty of why I'm unable to let that go. So I was able to work with a life coach that I hired. She's phenomenal. Her name is Charmaine with the Charm Effect. And we really dug deeper into like some inner child stuff that I had and just holding on to what no longer serves me. So it took a while for me to walk through that process because I struggled for the first 2 years, especially going back to school, of trying to balance or find that harmony. And then towards the last 2.5 years of school, it was a different type of struggle. And that's when I said, no, this needs to end. How do I put into action what I know needs to be done and don't feel guilty about it and not feel bad about it and not feel like I have to revert back? And working with the coach to get through into those, inner child issues, I think really, really helped me. And I'm not afraid to say that because every coach needs a coach. And, my therapist served her purpose or serves her purpose for other things in my life. But for that, I wanted to work with someone. And I have to say that that really helped me and trying to stay consistent now, you know?
No, you know what it reminds me of too is, you think with, for example, sport, how yes, you have a coach. Logically, you have a coach to help you either learn the sport physically or even help you through like the mental challenge that the sport may present. But why isn't it that we think about, like you said, I mean, just having a life coach, being
Yeah.
able to experience maybe adapting from one season to the other in our life, and to reach out for another coach. And I think that's beautiful. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because it got me thinking that in my mind, it's always been like, when I think of a coach, it's like sport coach. Like, I don't know why. And so I think that's beautiful to take time and to realize, like you said, you stopped and you kind of said, no, like this is not going to go on anymore like this. I'm going to get somebody to support me and to help guide me. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Dr. Marlene, this has been a fantastic podcast
It has.
episode. You
It has.
are phenomenal. You
Thank you.
really are. You are an inspiration to me. And I would just love to go out on this podcast episode with a positive message or positive quote for our community.
Okay, positive message, positive quote. You matter. What you feel matters. What you're thinking matters. What you want matters. And what you've done matters. And I have to tell you, we have to remember that because we second guess ourselves a lot. And that's the motto of my company, Women Matter, because we just think that our job is to show up for everybody else. That's just naturally, inherently, unfortunately, sometimes whatever the word is that we feel we have to do. And until we recognize that you matter, what you think matters, what you want matters, what you've done matters. And I've added what you've done because it took all of me, Courtney, to sit here and not give you my typical response when someone tells me I did a good job, or, congratulations, because I don't like being celebrated, because in my brain, that's my job. Like, that's what I was supposed to do, So, and I used to respond as such, like, no, no, it's okay. And then I had to stop. I learned that through my life coach. No, it's okay to be celebrated, because what I've done matters, right? How I feel, and people wanting to, celebrate me or thank me or recognize, it's okay. It's okay. Mhm.
You so much for that. And Dr. Marlene, I have to add just one more thing to round out this podcast episode. Okay.
Yes.
So recently, this just happened, but I would love for you to speak about you were featured in what is called the Impact Leaders. Okay. Could you explain to the audience what that is and why that means so much to you? That's incredible.
That Impact Leaders, it's Impact Leaders. I am a co-author along with the one and only original shark from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington. And it's an opportunity that I'm so proud of, because it really helped me tie together the story I was telling you about, not really understanding the constant need to study leadership. And then all of a sudden it clicked, where we're continually growing, continually, learning and developing. And to do that on a level with someone like a Kevin means everything. And the other co-authors in the book, they're just powerhouses on their own. And the book is a collection of, practical tips, leadership strategies, also built in with some storytelling. So you can see that these are credible people just like you, that had normal issues just like you. And through that, they were still able to push through and be the type of leaders that make impacts either in their country. We have international folks that are co-authoring the book, make an impact in their company, make an impact in their nonprofits, so it's a very, very, very important project for me that I'm really, really proud of. And I'm happy to be a part of it. It's called The Impact Leaders, and it's available on Amazon as well. Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
But so happy for you. I mean, that's a huge congratulations. You know,
Thank
you
you.
have we start this podcast with the TEDx
Yes,
speaking this particular
I
year,
know.
and then also this. I mean, this like
Yes,
2025. I mean, talk about just such a
yes,
beautiful year, focused on completion of pulling
yes,
everything together.
correct.
Dr. Marlene, you truly are an inspiration to myself, and I'm
Yes.
so excited to share this podcast with all of our listeners, because I know they are going to be just as inspired as I am. So
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much for coming on the podcast.
And you radiate positivity. Your light is just amazing. And I'm just truly, truly honored and blessed to have met you. You're amazing. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marlene.